order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right, so if there's any public comment at this time, we'll take that. I know that there is a presentation tonight for Friends of HES. And after their presentation, if people want to make comments at that point in time about the presentation, we'll take some questions and we'll welcome that. But this is also the time of the meeting where there is public comment. I would just ask if you do have public comment, if you could state your name, so Joanne has it for the record. And then we usually ask that you keep it to 3 minutes so that we can just keep moving with our business. So with that, I will open the floor to public comment and see if anyone has any questions. Yes?
I'm here again because, again, I'm offended by what Melissa's actions are. I won't disturb your town meeting tonight. I'm a citizen of North Cranford. I have served in the military. I love my country. I love the flag. And again, she's offended by something, and what she does every time at these meetings offends me. I will be here to make that public. Anytime she continues to offend me, I will be here to identify that. And with that, I'll give up my chair because I'm not a citizen of this town, and I know you have a lot of public business.
Thank you. Public comment? Yes.
Public comment?
Yes.
Okay, Maurice Adams, 32 Gates Way, Haddam. Last meeting I tried to email to each selectman and that didn't work. So tonight I have a handout, and this is about raising branzini. And you may wonder, what the heck does raising branzini have to do with Haddam, and especially when we're looking at issues such as HES and discussions about municipal sewage systems for Higgin. Well, that's the tie-in right there. And Ed, here's your copy of this as well.
Thank you.
And I have one for Alan Arano for the other newspaper, so I have that covered. Basically, what this article is about, Waterbury was facing an issue of 64,000 square feet of manufacturing space that got vacated by a manufacturer. They left, it's sitting there sort of like the Scotia Hove buildings, you know, sitting there, what are we going to do with it? They were able to work out an agreement with a person who raises branzini. He brings in little fingerling, these are sea bass from the Mediterranean. They have 64,000 square feet, and I forgot the number of gallons that are involved in doing all this stuff. But the real point is, it was a $10 million investment over a 5-year period to put this in. Waterbury worked with him, they were able to put it together, to make use of it. One of the key things there is that they needed a water treatment facility, but they needed water treatment to take salt out. They leave the fish poop in because it's used as nutrients for aquaculture. Okay. The point of this being, I know we've had some talk in town about whether we should have a municipal septic system in Higginham, yes or no. There's some really good articles about it. There's been some banter back and forth. What I got out of this article, and I put my observations on the end, is that I really think that we should work with potential developers of different things in Higgin, find out what their needs are, then work with that. In this particular case, what these people needed was a tax break. So they got a tax break. They didn't really need a sewage system. And it was not a type of thing where it was, if we build it, they will come. It's like, let's work with them, find out what's really needed, and then put that project together. So those are my personal observations. That's not to say they're exactly right or anything, but it's really worth reading. It's a pretty good article.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment at this time? Yes.
I'm going to try and make it brief, but it will be fast. My name is Heather Platt. I'm a resident of Haddam, and I have 2 children in district. I'm a school psychologist that until June of this past year had worked at the middle school for the previous 10 years. Like everyone that's here tonight, I have a very vested interest in our schools. But I have a unique perspective given my professional focus and my experience in our schools. The closing or potential closing of HES has been sold as being in the best interest of students, rather than just a way to cut some money from the budget. But there are many questions about whether or not it will be. The only one who ultimately walks away with a distinct positive if the closing happens is the superintendent, who can add that bullet point that he closed a school and saved $1 million to his resume. I'm wondering if that's why the rush. There seems to be a lot of unanswered questions that impact our community of Haddam, our students, and our teachers for this major change that would happen within the next several months. For me, the closing of HES is just one more example or symptom of the bigger problems within our district. The day-to-day functioning of our schools are even more telling and need to be paid closer attention to. When I moved here in the fall of 2002, I was pregnant with my first child. We chose this district partially for the decades-long reputation of great schools. But I was alarmed upon moving here by the mail I was getting on a frequent basis regarding the disdain for the superintendent at that time and the changes that she had made to the district. People were not happy, and neither was First Selectman Bondi. Shortly after this, she left, and things began to settle. But what I was most impressed about at the time was the way the town banded together to make a difference, and the reputation of the schools continued. We need that kind of community cooperation now. It's gaining steam around the catalyst of this decision to close the beautiful school in the center of our community. But morale within your schools is at an all-time low, and the individuals who are daily being disrespected and demoralized are the individuals that are teaching our babies. They are the experts. They have the advanced degrees, they've read the research, and have implemented the programs. They have experience that should be guiding this district, and they're consistently being told to sit down and be silent. Were they consulted regarding the closing? What is their input to services and providing in service for each other? They're not. I was moved to speak out for a variety of reasons after the November Board of Ed meeting, when Ms. Buzzy had asked a question about whether or not people were being given exit interviews and if the board should be doing that. And I had heard some factually untrue information when I watched that meeting, and so I conducted a survey about people who had left. And I found out that some of the information that the superintendent was presenting at that time was very much factually untrue. In fact, I went into it thinking it was untrue, and I was actually stunned with the results I got. But really importantly, 84.6% of the respondents reported that they left the district because they were unhappy. This wasn't stunning to me. People are still unhappy, and I'm still writing letters of recommendation all the time for really great teachers that are looking to leave our district. Our teachers don't feel valued, and their commitment to being an educator should be valued. I'm going to just quickly give you one example of something that happened over the course of the 2016-17 school year through now. I was a school psychologist. We finished the 2016-17 school year with 1.5 psychologists, 3 counselors, and a school social worker at the middle school. Moving into the 2017-18 school year, we had been cut by a half a counseling position because of reduced numbers at the middle school as a whole. Cutting a position can seem like an easy decision to make when you're just looking at numbers and don't look at need. This is what happened and is what is happening now when we look at arbitrary numbers like filling a building. My SUV seats 7, but I'm not going to be driving my 15-year-old and 5 of his 6-foot friends to the movies. Their needs dictate more room. The social-emotional needs of our middle schoolers demand more counseling staff and smaller class sizes. Filling the building to capacity and keeping grades 4 and 5 numbers low will continue to result in bigger class sizes in 6th grade. My daughter is in classes all over 20, and my son at the high school is frequently in classes of 28. This is considered acceptable, and is this going to be the norm moving forward? Remember, there's not enough counseling staff either, because due to some changes that happened, somebody left, and the position wasn't filled. Where did that money go? They also, when they wanted to cover for that position that wasn't filled, they pulled the half psychologist. So we're now operating 2 years later with a full-time position lost at the middle school that's not been budgeted anywhere and not been accounted anywhere. Where is that money? And how are those needs being met? I feel like the message that we're sending in the case of counseling staff is that our most vulnerable don't matter. And I think that we're beginning to send that same message with the idea of just shoving kids in a school because we need to fill the school. When I left, I was really honest about my reasons for leaving, because my role as a school psychologist had changed so completely that it wasn't actually what a school psychologist should be doing. And I often said at the time that I wished I could have had an exit interview with a board member and not the superintendent. When I heard a board member ask about that in November, that's why I stepped forward to talk about it. My final survey question to my former colleagues was about just that. I wanted to know what my colleagues felt about the idea of the Board of Ed conducting the exit interviews. 100% of the respondents agreed that they would have participated in this type of exit interview. People had strong thoughts about this and felt that in that environment they could have and would have shared their thoughts about why they were unhappy. I read some of those to the board when I spoke in December, and it was clear that amongst this pool of recent professionals who had left, people had consistent concerns about the direction of the district and their level of trust in the superintendent. People felt that they had sacrificed too much. Let's not let HES or any more of our amazing teachers be sacrificed without putting up a fight. For the good of our district and the teachers who have made it great all of these years, we, the town of Haddam, need to take a closer look at our current superintendent and the Board of Education. We need to remind the Board of Education that they are voted in to be the voice of their community, and that they employ the superintendent, not the other way around. The fight to save HES has brought to light some deep concerns. If our town prides itself on excellence in education, we need to do something to stop the slippery slope we're on. We need to hold the superintendent and the board accountable for the money, but also the education of our students. We need to remember that our teachers are experts. They should be valued and respected as such by our children, the community, and most certainly their administration. Thank you.
Heather, did you, thank you for that thoughtful letter. I'm just curious if you read that also to the Board of Ed or something similar?
I read something similar. I'm happy to send it to you.
Yeah,
I have that, and I have the data from the survey that I conducted, that I can forward as
I
well.
heard you read that letter at the board.
Yeah, so this was a little bit different, but similar.
For those of you who just came in, there are chairs here, and then there's probably some in the back, so if you don't mind standing, but I don't want you to think there's not room for you to sit. Okay. Yes, Stu?
This is Stu Gilmore, I have a question as to what the N is of your 84.6% and what the N was for the 100%.
There was 13 respondents to a very quick survey that was done in a few days. Ultimately, the superintendent had said in November in response to Ms. Budsey that he always sent a letter in response to people's letter of resignation, and that letter always includes an offer of an exit interview, and I knew that I hadn't been offered that, so I wondered what other people's experiences were. And only one person out of the 13 had been offered an exit interview, and only half of the people had even received a letter in response to their letter of resignation.
Let me go to Andy, Brenda, and then I'll be right to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Becker. I'm a former Haddam resident. I live in Middletown now. I wanted to address the board on the subject of the Haddam Elementary School closing. Two comments. For myself, as a former Higginham resident, I'm very sad to see it close, and I'd like to have it remain in business. I had two sons who graduated from Haddam Elementary School when we lived here, and I remember Ed Lewis and Mrs. Zanelli and all the rest. I'm also an attorney, and I'm representing Ted and Peter Rossi, who own the Rossi property next door. And from their standpoint, they have development plans for that property, a combination residential and commercial and perhaps retail development there. And it's important to their thinking and to their planning that the school be there. It contributes to their plan, it contributes to the village atmosphere, it's an important source of that atmosphere, and it would be a detriment to their development if the school were not there, to develop a property next to a great big unknown, which no one has any idea what it might be if the property were turned over for development. So I would like to support the efforts to have the Haddam Elementary School remain in business. Thank you.
I have a question for Andy. Andy, did you also let the Board of Ed know your thoughts and the Rossi's thoughts?
I will. I'll attend those meetings and I'll speak as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Brenda.
All right, I am Brenda Buzzy, I'm the liaison for the Board of Education. We're not all bad. I just wanted to let you know that there are things that are going on that are good with our taxpayer dollar. The projects at the high school, the photovoltaic, the auditorium projects, the lighting projects are all under budget. And they're, the photovoltaic is a little behind schedule. So those things are going forward, so that's a good, those are positive things that we need to talk about. The restructuring is going forward as of right now. There is a meeting on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, at the middle school in Killingworth on Route 81 at 7 o'clock. If anyone wants to come and voice their opinion, they're more than welcome. In regards to Mrs. Paz, to respond to what she has been saying, I'm on the personnel subcommittee and we are not letting this go. This is really something that we are delving into, and we'll be taking care of the very serious issue and accusation that she put forward. So it's not being ignored by any stretch of the word. There's 2 former employees on the Board of Ed, and right now, that have experienced things firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Neil Perrin. It's been stated before that the Board of Ed is separate from the town. So it's good that everybody's speaking out here. This is the support that we need to be brought to the Board of Ed meetings. Unfortunately, they've already made their decision, and like I spoke out in the meeting in November and requested that Joanne resign. The Board of Ed needs to either retract this vote. Unfortunately, the town can't do anything about it. But everybody needs to go to the Board of Ed meetings. I'm from Haddam, and I stated in the meeting, I've never been in the school at HES, but it means a lot for the center of this town, so I support keeping it open. The only other thing, and this is not directed toward anybody, but the way the 3 selectmen are coming together for this HES, and you all spoke together and worked together and trying to move Haddam forward, I hope that all 3 of you can work together on more than just this one issue for our town and our people.
Anyone else for public comment before we get to our,
Yeah.
do some, yes.
I'm Dave Barrett. I've lived in town in Higganum for 35 years. I moved here because of the education. Friends of mine lived here, they grew up here, and the reason I moved here is for the education. My kids went through Haddam Elementary, all 3 of them. They're all graduated from Haddam High School. Now one of my grandkids is in the new middle school, which I don't understand why we needed it if the enrollment has been going downhill for over 5 years. That should have been a flag a long time ago, but I don't understand why they're closing Haddam Elementary when now I have 3 more grandkids that would be going there. I have a neighbor down the street, I have 2 behind me that have 3 more kids. I know of at least a dozen that are close to me that would be going there. For us to go out to Burr and is just, it doesn't make sense. I can understand in 5 years, the town's gonna come to us and say, or the Board of Ed, and hey, we have to add on. Now, instead of what they claim $1 million savings, there's no way they're gonna save $1 million. They're not, it's not gonna happen. What's gonna happen is all the teachers are moving, and I don't wanna see a teacher lose a job. Believe me, they do a great job. They've done a great job in this town for years. And I don't have any plans of moving. The dramatics of town have changed over the 35 years. When I moved here, the taxes on my home were cheap because we had the power plant. Now that's gone. That's off the table. You know, apparently they were overtaxed. So we had to pay them back $10 million. Well, my taxes have gone up over the years, dramatically. They've tripled, quadrupled, and I still don't care. Wherever that $1 million they're coming up with is coming from, I think divided among the whole town, I think it's worth keeping open. I don't know why they thought they had the right to make that big decision. That's dramatic to this town. The owner of the market downtown said that if that school closes, he's selling, he's gone. Now that was public record last Tuesday. So, what else is left? The bank's gone. It's just, it's ridiculous. When they close that, now the school bus contract is up after this year. So next year, we're gonna get possibly a new contract. You're not telling me that they're gonna bus the kids from Haddam Neck to Burr or the middle school for the same money that they would be dumping them right here. It's just not gonna happen. I don't understand where all this, these numbers are coming from. But, I don't want to stand here and I don't want to babble. I just came to voice my opinion. And it's just when you stand there at the Haddam, the Board of Ed meeting, it's like they got their deaf ears to you, that what your comments are saying don't matter. It's just, it's very frustrating. I don't complain a lot. They always said the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, right now, I am the squeaky wheel. And, I don't complain about my road because, well, it's so bad, it keeps people a little bit slower than they would be if it was a highway. So, to me, they're speed bumps. They're not potholes. To my wife, they're an annoyance. But that's my issue. But thank you anyway,
I'm not very educated, but what I'd like to have somebody explain to me. We paid for that school over the years. We paid for the buses over the years. A small body of people have the control to sell our buses. Now they're going to sell the school, supposedly. It's like building a house, paying for it, and somebody stealing it. I don't understand. I asked the guy, the buses. And he went to Avon. When he went to Avon, I told him, when he went to Avon, they got money over there. You're not going to last. He got fired. So sometimes people are overeducated and they have no common sense. I ain't making fun of the people there, but I wish they would listen to the townspeople, what they're telling them. We paid for it and they're stealing it. Thank you.
I'll make this really fast. Hi, my name is Melissa Moore. I'm a teacher in Plainville, so I get the education side of why they're trying to kind of minimize the budget. To kind of segue over with where we're going next, my husband and I moved to Depot Hill, which is right near Haddam Elementary School. 7 years ago, when we found out we were pregnant with our firstborn. We now have twins also. That was unexpected, so we have 3 children that will, twins aren't yet at the elementary level.
And they're done that.
Yes, yes. We had our home reappraised last year, thinking we could refinance, and our house appraisal went down 105% because of the impending closing of HES. There's no other factor. We've only done renovations to our home. That was alarming. I was upset about HES closing, but until we had our home tried to be refinanced, I didn't realize the economic impact that this would have on the surrounding community and people who'd like to move into the downtown area. Something to consider. Thank you.
With stating that, go ahead, Linda. Sorry.
I'll be quick also.
It's okay. We're
I'm
fine.
Linda Fleming, and I live across the street from Haddam Elementary School, actually. And I have two children who went through that school many years ago, more than I'd like to admit. And I have to say, I still enjoy hearing the activity over there every day. I hear the kids out on the playground, and it is the life of Higginham Center. And that's how I feel, and if that closes, I mean, you know, as has been said many times, there's a lot of empty buildings in Higginham. And that one has life and joy, and it makes the center what it is, and it would just make me very sad to see that close.
Thank you. I just want to, give me 1 second now, because I want to answer some comments that were made or make a few remarks and then take a few more questions. So, Mr. Parmalee, to your answer, we are a regional school district, so the statutes that are written by the legislature, by the government in Hartford, dictate what we do. So neither Haddam nor Killingworth have a true say over the finances, over anything to do with the school, their budget. That's why they go to referendum and do what they need to do. Even some of the new laws that have been passed recently with lowering education budgets, when we've been getting all the cuts that have been talked about coming from Hartford, they seem to keep leaving regional school systems out of all of those bills. So there really is not much other than being able to have people come together and voice their opinion that the town technically has control over. I can't force them to have a referendum. There's things that we have no legal right to make that board do. They're elected by the people. 5 of them are from Killingworth and 6 of them are from Haddam. So that's the makeup of that board. So just to answer your
Yeah,
question.
I understand that part, but my opinion, is just my opinion, the townspeople ought to be able to make a vote what their recommendation is and let them see what the townspeople's wishes are and carry on from there. Maybe it's not legal to have a vote, I don't know. I don't understand the law.
They were within their power to do what they needed to do. So I'm just gonna leave it
Yeah,
at that
thank you.
because I don't wanna, because, you know, sometimes people don't understand that the town government does not have control, and I don't think that they understand why. So I just wanted to explain that to you. The other thing is about Higginham Center. So that's one of the reasons why we had this meeting. We have been having our Economic Development Committee, our Infrastructure Committee, which is looking at the study of our infrastructure. We looked at infrastructure, we obviously have water going to Tylerville. We're looking at possibility of what sewers would bring in the center. Obviously, we have had businesses come in. Greg McKenna just spent a significant amount of money to improve his building. Kay just spent a significant amount of money to fix Highway Package. You know, you have Terry's Package Store, and Mingus spent a lot of money on the market. And those business owners do a lot for our community. You know, they're a small community. When we need donations and things, we go to them. So we've been working very closely with them. As far as Citizens Bank goes, I just need for the record, Citizens Bank never came to the town to let the town know that they were closing. I actually got a phone call from someone who has a bank account, Citizens Bank, letting me know that the bank was closing. After playing phone tag with the vice president of the bank a number of times, we have Robin Munster, who's the economic development coordinator, who's here tonight, and myself, had reached out to several banks, including Liberty Bank, who's right there, and credit unions to see if they were interested. Citizens Bank has over $50 million in assets. That's the key number that you need to be profitable as a bank. This is not private information, this is all records through FDIC. They are not interested in renting that building out to another bank. They basically told me on the phone and hung up with me and the vice president, and I've reached out, we've sent, you know, to other people above them, that they will put anything there other than a bank. So I want the community to know that the town has been working diligently. We've had meetings with other banks, we've had meetings with credit unions that have viable interest into going into that space. There were even talks with Liberty Bank. Maybe they're still going on, but there's a 5-year lease on that building. RE owns that building, and they are not looking for anything to go in there unless it's other than a bank. So if there's a business that comes along or something, again, because of the parking being tight and the infrastructure, it's a concern. So I just want people to know, I'm not just sitting here watching things close and not caring and not doing anything about it. But when we're told that these are the terms that we're gonna work with, that doesn't mean the door's closed, it doesn't mean that we're not gonna still try to have conversation with them. But I just want you to know publicly what has been said with Citizens Bank. And they're in Rhode Island, so I wanted them to understand that they're making decisions corporately from Rhode Island about a small rural community that they know nothing about, and how important that bank is. And if you think about it, Liberty Bank, there's a whole commercial opportunity, which these other banks are looking at, for those merchants that I just talked about, for them to be able to do their banking and what they need to do. So I just wanted to address that because that's also come up about Citizens Bank being closed, and it is another building that is empty, but we're trying to work on solutions. I had asked the committee tonight that went to the Board of Education meeting to come tonight and to present to the Board of Selectmen the impact about the economics of the center. So that's what is on our agenda that we're going to get to in a couple of minutes. There is a group, the Buildings Committee, which has worked on Scoville Ho. It's the old DOT garage, for those of you who don't know what that is. They've worked on the jail, and they've actually assisted us with some things here with grants. There's a committee that's looked at those things. We have an economic development committee that's looked at opportunity. We've been trying to do more markets on the green. We've been trying to do more things to bring people into the center. And, again, Taylorville is on its way with water. We just put in village regulations there, and we have village regulations in Higginham Center. The infrastructure committee was created probably about 9 months ago to start to look at the options. Haddam's looked at, and it's about the facts. Everybody has an opinion, and I very much appreciate that. We're all from this town, and we all have an opinion, and we all need to be heard. But we need to have professional opinions, and we need to look at things. So in the budget for this year, what was passed was something called a facility study. And that study is going to give us options as to whether or not sewers are even available to put in the center. And maybe we look at some type of community system and different things. But unless we have the data and the facts, there's been articles dated back in publications for 20 years about having this conversation. And part of what I wanted to see from the economic impact of the center was to see how all these things correlate, because everything's starting to come together. So there is a meeting. It is on January 24th. It is at 6:30. It is a meeting of all of those committees. I have asked Planning and Zoning to attend. It is not a Planning and Zoning meeting. They have 2 meetings this month. And we will meet at the firehouse, and there's a study that's been done professionally by Camoin to talk about housing options, to talk about needs of Higginham Center, that we were able to do when we applied for the Brownfield grant for Scoville Ho. So the thought process in doing that was to get all of these committees together, talking to each other, so that we can hear from the community and the committee members, so that we could start to look to see what types of things can be viable in Haddam. Pratt Whitney is expanding. We've been reached out to engineering firms. Matter of fact, in honesty, Liz Glidden is no longer our town planner. She left. Bill Warner starts tomorrow. He has 25 years of experience. He's a certified planner. He has 20 years of being in Middletown, and he has 5 years in being in Farmington. That's another reason we're having the meeting. We have a new planner coming in. So they'll be able to help to look to do some of these issues that we all have. I lost my train of thought a little bit on that with Bill, so I apologize where I was going with that. The community needs to make a decision what we want to be and what we need to be. So again, listening to what everybody has to say and putting it all together is really what we represent all of you. I have people who do want to see the school closed, and they have made their voices heard. And I know there is a very strong movement around HES of keeping it open. And that's not only just from parents, it's from other residents that have come to see us or me and have voiced their opinion. And again, we're a small community, so we really need to listen to what is going on. And I am very concerned, as I said at the joint meeting, about the economics of the community. One of the main reasons that I decided to run for office is because we have a very high tax base, to your point, and we need to be able to stay here and live here. We also have great schools, and we have great teachers. Another reason why I moved to this community. So in saying that, I'd like to get through our approval of our minutes. If there is a pressing comment for public comment, I'm happy to take it. Most of the comments have been about the school, which is great, but I also think we're gonna have some follow-up questions when Shauna and Katie finish with their presentation. So before I move on,
I have some
To
things
that,
to say about the school
um,
before we move on to the.
why don't I get, I see 2 more hands up, and then 3 more hands up. So Neil, you were about to go, so now I'll let you make your comment.
Quick question, can the town or board of selectmen file an injunction with the courts to stop immediately what they're
No, we
doing?
have no legal control.
Just an attorney.
Okay, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, getting to the sewers, I'm all for putting sewers in the downtown area, but personally, I came from an area in the north end of Meriden, out in the boondocks. When they came through with sewers, they built houses on 50 by 100-foot lots. And unless we as a community want that, I would say, make sure, if you want to go with the sewers, which I'm all for, because you're not going to get anything big downtown without it, that you keep that in mind. That, you know, once the sewers go in, the next thing is your zoning. You know, when I moved into town, it was 1 acre in town, 2 acre out of town. That's off the table. That now is, they have what they call cluster housing. They can put 5 houses on 2 acres, give the town 10 acres of crap land as a conservation easement, and they're happy
So,
with
I'm
it.
gonna stop you there. We have village districts in that area, or what we're talking about with the sewers. So to your point for housing, but that is not what we're talking
No,
about.
I understand.
Just that, and then Sally.
Just an announcement, Christine Pond, she's our state representative, correct?
Yes.
Okay. She's going to be at the Nook tomorrow in Tylerville to hear concerns from the town. This would be a great time for all of you to show up, crowd that Nook and let her know that we don't want the school closed. I believe it's 9:30 in the morning. Yeah. Am I right? Was anybody?
Yeah, 9:30.
I think that's what you said. 9:30.
I think it's 9:30.
So Melissa, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know and to prepare yourselves in case we can't turn this around and the Board of Ed continues to make those decisions and closes the school, that the one last option that I think we have as a board, where you all could make an effect on us, is that we keep that building and use it as a town center, where you combine everything, like senior center, community center, you still get to use the gym, we can hold the Board of Selectmen meetings there, we could use it for multiple things, the garden club could use it, Boy Scouts, the Historical Society, the Veterans Museum is busting out of the seams. So there's a lot of uses we could put in that building. We could rent out the other buildings that the town already owns to recoup some costs. There is going to be a cost if we decide to do that. But I want to put that in everybody's mind that that's a plan B if the school absolutely closes. So keep that in mind. You come back to the Board of Selectmen, that would actually be a referendum vote to take that school back, but that's an option. And then we would still retain that beautiful building and it would stay with the town and people could still use it. We could repair the playground so the kids have something nice to use there instead of what's there. That's an option.
Okay, so we're gonna move forward. It's 7, I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question.
Yes,
You mentioned that there were people who said they want the school closed.
yes,
What were their reasons for wanting it closed?
taxes. Okay, so we have to approve some minutes for the November 13th, 2018 meeting. I have a motion to approve.
Make that motion.
Any discussion?
I'll reiterate, as I do every meeting, that it's a disservice to today and the future that we do not have any details at all of discussion, especially for something as important as hiring of a town planner and some of the other issues. So I would just state that for the record. If you would like me to write down my comments and submit them for the record in a written form, that would actually get in the record, I would be happy to do that. Thank you.
Any Any other discussion? All in favor of approving November 13, 2018 minutes, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. December 17th special meeting minutes. A motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, and then we just have a few tax refunds. We have 2 real estate refunds totaling $1,205.60. There's no personal property refunds. We have motor vehicle refunds totaling $1,570.37. And there are no motor vehicle supplement refunds, for a grand total of refunds of $2,775.97. So I'd like to have a motion to approve that dollar amount. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so Friends of HES, you have the floor.
Hello. So I just want to start by introducing myself, and so my name is Katie Pachter. I am working with a growing group of concerned citizens to work through a better solution than closing this elementary school, Haddam Elementary School, which has been not only proposed but voted in by the Board of Ed. I think you all understand by now that there are certain state laws that allow the boards of education this kind of free rein. But I do believe, and have been working diligently with many others, that we have a responsibility to bring to their attention and to the attention of all of our town leaders why this really may not be such a good idea. And really, I'm so involved in this because I can't not be. It's that important, and I think for a lot of you, you recognize various reasons why it's that important. Tonight, we're going to focus on the economic impact on the village center, but really on Haddam as a whole. I understand, and I think you understand, that we are a district. There is the Killingworth component and the Haddam component, so we are supposed to be working together, and you'll find, probably, just in my language, that I'm going to come back a lot to that collaboration and working together as a district, as a town, as a body of citizens, whether we have children in the schools or not. I think it's important that we come together at this juncture. So just to get started, hopefully it works.
Sorry for the color.
The color, we went pink. It got a little purplish pink. Sorry about the projector, but essentially there are some key components to the puzzle of this downtown village district, and we've picked out 5 to simplify the issues a little bit, but 5 important components that make up a vibrant village, and it's really based on smart growth. So the vision of a lively, walkable village includes live, work, learn, play, and shop components. You can expand those, but that's really the heart of the things that you really need to create a complete community. And really consolidating these 5 uses to the smallest possible footprint is going to give us a lot of added value. We're going to minimize the cost of the infrastructure, which is, I'm sure you've heard a lot about, and it's really a key component to the growth and development of our town center. If you've also looked at the town POCD, you can go back and reference all of these things. They've thought through that very thoroughly. And there's a lot on that. You're going to increase foot traffic, you're going to bolster business, increase social interaction, and improve the physical health of the community, but also the emotional health, the social health, the well-being that's created in a small community. And you're also going to reduce our dependence on cars, so less traffic, which is a safety concern, but also is a resource concern. wear on roads and emissions. So looking forward, we want to be also very sustainable. We want to grow in a way that's going to continue and live on for future generations. So the first main component. Learn. So learn. So we have learn at the center because this is about HES really, and it's about our town center. But really, this piece it's what attracted a lot of us to this town. Shauna drew up a survey recently and rolled it out. I think we gave it 2 or 3 days, and in that period of time, she garnered about 260 responses from all different people, not just parents or neighbors, but just throughout the community, including all the way down into Burr and Killingworth. Most of the people that move to this area move here for a few specific reasons, but at the top of that list is the school district and the educational gain. So really, HES will attract renters to housing and entrepreneurs to incubator spaces, shoppers to businesses. So this is looking forward. Right now, we've already come here for the schools. We've come here for the education. Maybe we've seen some kids grow up in the district, and we know the value of that. Next is the live component. So, as you know, probably we have a sort of simple structure to our communities, and it's mostly homes, like single-family homes that you can invest in. So looking forward, it's really important, and going back to the POCD again, it's important to create a dense village center where we're offering alternate types of housing and residential opportunities, apartments, condos, and as you heard from Andy on behalf of the Rossi property earlier, there are projects that have already been underway for actually years, working to get those things actually planned and designed and built is in our best interest. And creating that denser core with housing has a direct connection to HES. The Rossi property, there's a physical connection. It is adjacent to HES. But there are other properties that are available for such development. The work componentry. So a lot of us, some of us probably work in town, some of us work out of town. I think the majority of us work out of town. Haddam is known as sort of a bedroom community, and we like that we have our small town in sort of a rural space that we can come home to and be away from all that other stuff. But it is important in the village district to create a work opportunity. So there are currently even opportunities that are coming to the fore for incubator spaces at the Scoville property, for example. And as the community grows and more businesses infiltrate, it will have more opportunities for work right in the center of town. And also I want to point out with the work component, that's directly related to all the other components, looking a little forward into the future, say 10 years out. Millennials work differently than we do typically. With technology, you don't need to go to the office every day. So having an opportunity to come to Haddam, to have a place to live, and also be able to perhaps work from home but have access to local services is key, and it's important to them. So they are looking for these dense, walkable communities where you don't necessarily have to get in your car to go to work every day. You can actually interact, and sort of as a domino effect, you start to create these great social environments and communities where you're merging, different generations and different types of people because you're spending more time in your community. You're maybe working in your community, you're living in your community. The shop component, obviously, we have been working over the years to maintain some of this in our district or to encourage more of this in our district. You may have seen things come and go, but the main idea here is it's an important need you need to think about and allow for. So people are gonna want to have the opportunity to, I mean, I go to the pharmacy for like everything. You know, you can go to the pharmacy for your medicine, but you're also there, they've got other little things that you can buy for a birthday present or a card or whatever you might need. But I think there's an opportunity there to create more businesses where, you know, you've got the feed store, you've got, you know, you've got the pharmacy that has some of these other little shoppy things, but other needs other than like food, for example. And also restaurants, cultural opportunities, so whether it's museums or art galleries, all of these things start to come together and create that cohesive core. And then the play, so that actually sort of feeds into the play. There's a little bit of a crossover there. But one of our big resources in town that we, and the POCD again, going back to that, highlights is our natural resources. So we are situated geographically and in an area that's absolutely gorgeous and offers a lot of recreational activities and opportunities. But specifically in relating this back to HES, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Swan Hill Trail System, which is right behind the HES property, but there's like 150 some odd acres. Behind HES, the school actively uses, the fourth graders clear the trails. It has become, for the school, an outdoor classroom over the years. So it's great for the school to have that major asset, but it's also great for all of us as a town to have that shared asset and to be able to access it. It's something that we need to preserve, I think, and it's also something, I mean, I'm a landscape architect and we do a lot of work with various levels of education, but all of them are looking for outdoor classrooms. We're trying to create this kind of space that HES inherently has. And furthermore, that whole property was initially donated by the Hazen family for education. There was to be a school built there, and if it wasn't going to be a school and they weren't going to build a school, that property would have reverted back to the Hazen family. These people also donated Haddam Meadows. There's a whole trust involved in that, but it's something to keep in mind that if that was the initial intent for that land, maybe that's something that we want to preserve for us in our village district, and it's an economic resource, really. It's a draw, but I think it's also important to preserve, knowing that that was the intention for that property. So this was a quote from the POCD. There are places and features in Haddam that if lost would fundamentally change the character of the town. And if you reference that document, which is online, there are some points here. I'm not going to read through everything in the interest of time, but I think HES is definitely one of them. I think that clock tower, that entry into the town center, if you're driving by, and I think Linda alluded to earlier, just having that lively feature and force at the gate of our village coming south from Middletown is really important. I think there's something to be said for the cultural aspect of that, for the emotional connection to that, and we need to be cognizant of maintaining a cultural continuum with that. So we're striving to create social and economic diversity while respecting the need for cultural continuity. So a lot of people will stand up and talk about the emotional pull. My kids went there, I went there, I want my grandkids to be there. And some people will initially dismiss that kind of subjective commentary. But I think it's very important, and it's been proven beyond what I think, that that kind of cultural continuity is important for a space. And we also wanted to point out with this that we think it's really important to consider opportunities for multi-generational housing. There have been some discussion. There has been some discussion about maybe we really need a senior center, or we need a senior housing facility, or we need. But from what I've learned and from what I know about planning and about smart development, really you want to marry the generations. You want to provide opportunities for an entire community of people, and that's one of the goals, I think, of the POCD. These are all direct references to the POCD, and if you want to take over, you can. You can take the next slide. I'll take the next slide. Yeah. But basically, you know, we're just referring back to the plan that the town has crafted. So a lot of work went into this, and I think part of the point here is the collaboration and the connectivity, and to know that this document exists, page 12, page 4, page 10. This isn't anything new. We're not reinventing the wheel. This is what our town has outlined as a plan, and it's important to note how those goals may interact with other bodies of government, other committees, other boards. So, yes. So this is just more of the same.
Yeah.
More of the same. But we want to develop a place where people can walk, shops, restaurant services, and we need to close the gaps in the infrastructure, the sidewalk network, the sewers, the water. These are all things that I think probably most of you have heard many people talk about ad nauseum. And why can't we just do it? Why is it still the way it is now? I would say to that even through the years and waiting for the right thing to come along and knowing that we need the right infrastructure in at least our village district, Haddam Elementary has been there holding things together in a sense. I really think that there is, that school has been the glue. While all these other things maybe came and go and they didn't really work out, and we didn't have the right opportunity because we didn't have the sewers, we didn't have the water. That school has been a stronghold over the years since 1948, and I think it's a historical piece. It's an artifact that that's important economically and socially to our town.
Why don't you finish up the development and then I'll start on the YHS.
Sure. So smart development, you can certainly look into this more, but in specific to our town, and again, back to the Rossi project, there is that Rossi property which has been there for years undeveloped, but there's also a plan in the works that has begun, and some of the due diligence has already been done, and there has been an offer to collaborate with the town to find a solution that's more holistic, specific to sewers and water, and trying to find a way to solve that problem for the Rossi site, but also willing to and interested in also solving that problem for the town as a whole, because I think those developers realize that it functions as a whole, that as a town, the Rossi property will benefit if they do complete that project, to having a neighboring restaurant, to having these shops and learning opportunities and maker spaces available. So that's important to note. And then with that, also the Scoville building, which I don't think we own yet, still in the state, still a state property, but there are investors that are interested in some pretty exciting developments for that property. So we want to work with them and move our town in the right direction. Infrastructure. So I've already alluded to this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but infrastructure is the basis that we are missing. We need sewer and water to allow for the kind of development that we seek. Specifically, I know restaurants require certain things, and they're just not able to do those things. Even the Rossi development, which is I think the last one I saw was an 85 unit development. We need to have the proper infrastructure to serve those new developments. And we also need to encourage conservation and preservation of the natural resources in the town systems. So again, keeping Haddam Elementary in the town center, which brings that not only a draw if you look it up online, but if you're driving through town, you see that school and you realize that we do have a stage here for our educational system that we value and all the good work that they do there. And I think it's key to have it be visible and have it be lively and be able to look across the street and see what's going on there. So yeah, we don't need to go into that. No. That's just more stuff. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm Shauna Goldfarb, came to Higginham about almost 4 years ago now with my two boys. So I just wanted to introduce myself really quickly. The next part of our presentation is really to circle back around and discuss all the infrastructure that is needed for planning and for our future, and how does Haddam Elementary fit into that, and why we as a group, Friends of the Haddam, and many of you feel it's so important to keep HES open in our town center. So first of all, as we've referenced in our infrastructure, the natural resources, recreational resources for Higginham throughout the many years of all the research that I've done, and including now, is a huge asset to the village town center. And HES offers that necessary recreational resources. HES provides, it has 157 parcel acres for the recreational activities for both town residents and visitors that come in the summer, or may come in, in the evenings after school's over, that may come in to do some shopping. Swan Hill, as Katie had brought up, is the 50-mile trail system behind the school. It's actually part of the property. And the trailhead is actually located behind the school. My kids and I have hiked it multiple times. You go on Facebook, you always see pictures of the Connecticut River of those who have hiked it, and just absolutely beautiful location. So it's on many websites throughout the whole state for one of the top scenic heights in the state of Connecticut. So it does draw visitors to our town. So the cell of HES would also include, they're saying they're not 100% sure the BOE, but Swan Hill may go along with that property, and we would lose that property as a town. In addition to the school also has the basketball courts, the play equipment, multiple use fields that all, as we've seen, they use the basketball courts in the evenings. Kids are there on the weekend on the playground, so very important. Obviously, maintaining a school within walking distance of our town, it minimizes transportation costs, supports those future residents, again, those younger generations that are coming into different areas, rural communities that are being created throughout the entire country and that are becoming the draw of these groups of generation that are starting their families now, that are married, they're starting families, they want to find a location, and they want places that they can walk. And along with that there's a guideline. We want to discourage sprawl. We are not planning on having commercial businesses outside of the town center. We want to have these businesses in the center. We want to draw not just residents, businesses and whatnot into the center, and having that school there is always one of the number one things that new residents and businesses look for when they look at locating into a small urban location.
Can I just say too, Ming specifically said at the last Board of Ed meeting that he had the opportunity to go to Tylerville or to go to Higginham Village Center when he brought his business to town, and he saw that there was a school in Higginham, and he chose Higginham. And he also noted he does like 20 to 25% of his business between the hours of 1 and 4, which is when people are coming to pick up their kids.
And the same thing, anecdote for me, one of the reasons I moved to Higginham was driving through Higginham multiple times and seeing that school. We've already had another story of living close, and you see the kids outside and playing. So having a visible school in the central part of our town is socially, is culturally, it's emotional, it's very important for the live, play, work, shop, and learn mentality that is happening. Again, this is not just in our town, this is not just our state, this is happening nationwide. And small urban communities are doing this everywhere. They're creating these plans to draw the residents and the people, and we need to do the same. Yeah, you're just opposite of me. I know. Do you want me to keep going?
I mean, really, this is sort of a backwards way of pointing out that we need to work together.
Yeah, and here's some of the things that those of you that are kind of just hearing our group for the first time are hearing really what has been happening for the last 9 months since this vote was put into place. 9 months. 11. We've been working hard and diligently to work with the BOE. We have been asking for information. We have been calling for collaboration. We've been basically saying failing to plan is planning to fail. We feel they're not listening to us. They're not planning on what's going to happen because a lot of the research and a lot of the emotional that we feel is if we lose the draw of that school in the town, we lose the ability to draw in new residents and new business. We lose the ability to draw in those new wage earners, those taxpayers. So that's what's actually going to help them boost their district, their planning, their beautiful school, bring the teachers, keep the teachers. So it's kind of in a backwards thinking that we've been working with.
And it is important to note that while our hands might be tied legally, because we are one portion of a district, as far as the regional district is concerned, we are empowered. We do have a voice, and I think it's important to note that through these talks and after a lot of time and effort spent trying to meet with the right people, we are at a point where the real value and the importance of creating that dialogue, not only with the Board of Ed and trying to meet with each of those members, but also meeting with our town leaders, meeting with our boards and committees, the Economic Development Committee, the Planning and Zoning Committee. We've had people trying to reach out to all of those groups to bring us together instead of functioning in sort of, our own sort of task-based list of things that we need to get done, and there's only so much time and there's only so much money. But I think it's important that we step back, that we look at the bigger picture, and we start to connect the dots. So Haddam is 60%-ish of the district. And it's important for us, if this decision has been made and we don't agree with it, then it is important for us to really speak up and to try to contribute to that dialogue, to bring our concerns to our town leaders and to our Board of Ed leaders, and to find a better way, just to find a better solution, because there is a better solution out there. And Shauna's already begun to go through line item by line item as soon as she gets all that documentation of that budget. Now, not the line item by line item, if you ever would have taken the time to look at those budgets that we vote for, but even with more detail. She's looking into every penny that's being spent, the same way that our board has to reconcile every penny that they spend. So,
We basically want to address, we want to do the same thing that we're asking our town leaders to do, is bring together, there are those that have asked that we want to close HES. Why? Because of tax reasons. So we've been tasked, how do we solve that problem? So we're taking that on, and we're looking line by line, and we're trying to look line by line and give alternatives to that, that may not be, fresh eyes looking at these numbers that might not be coming from the board or be coming from our superintendent or coming from our district CFO. Those that might have a little bit more open mind on some changes.
and thinking creatively. We really do need to get together and think creatively and find a solution that makes sense, because this solution doesn't make sense for Haddam. Maybe it makes sense for Killingworth, maybe it makes sense for the regional district, but it doesn't make sense for Haddam. And it's important that we make that clear, and that we try to find alternatives, and that we find the proper support to voice that. And we were actually even asked to find the proper support to voice that at our last strategic capital planning committee that we sat on, which is just a portion of the Board of Ed. But that's the portion of the Board of Ed that did the capital planning research, came up with a report, and made the suggestion that HES should be the school to close. So coming from them, and recognizing the validity of some of the points that have been brought to their attention. I mean, everybody can't think of everything. So it's our job to think of the things that are really going to impact us and our children and our town. And we were asked to find some support, to speak to our leaders, to speak to our committees, to ramp it up another level. So if you are moved by any of these things, if you have concerns, I would definitely encourage you to speak out or write to your Board of Ed members, to Liz and Melissa and Larry, and the meeting that was called for the 24th, I think, is a fantastic idea. We've been hoping for something of that caliber for a while, and I think that that's going to help move things forward, hopefully, and maybe make it clear that there's got to be another option. So,
I mean, basically, the SCP, the strategic planning meeting, basically said we get our town leadership on board and backing us in everything that we've discussed. And we are in it for the long haul of everything that we've presented here, from tomorrow through the next 10 years. And yes, we do know that we've had the stories that this has been going on for 10, 15, 20 years. We're also letting you know there's a fresh group of us, new blood, very energetic, putting in the time, along with taking care of our little ones and working and everything else to make this plan happen, to work with our town leaders, our boards, our committees to be insaturated and make it happen. We're not going away, and we're going to fight to continue to bring our leadership together, our committees together, our boards together, including the BOE, to bring more economic development to our town center. And this is the first step. We need HES, and we need our leaders to back us up on this.
well, and it is also noted. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sally Haas. I had two grandchildren go through Burr School, which is also a very nice school, and I can't help but think that if the school district had chosen Haddam Elementary over Burr School, Burr parents would be sitting here now with, say, Burr School. And I just wondered if you are, and one of the reasons that I understood that they chose Burr over HES was that the infrastructure at Burr was much more modern than HES. So I'm wondering if you are suggesting that you are willing, or you're asking the town or the district to put additional dollars into HES to bring it up to the level of Burr School in order to save HES?
That's a great question. And so first of all, I will note that HES was built in 48. Burr was built in, I believe, 60.
Yeah, but the addition of.
Yep, I'm going there. I'm going there. I'm going there. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, right.
Burr was built in like 69, 67, I want to say.
70.
70. And there was a whole addition and renovation that was done at HES in 89. So we have been led to believe that HES is old and decrepit. But I actually went to one of the walkthroughs with one of my colleagues to see. You know, my kids have gone there and I've walked the halls, but I was curious about the systems and the guts and what really needs to be done and where is the discrepancy. And HES is actually in very good shape. I didn't tour Burr, so I can't really comment on Burr, but I think it was a little bit of a subjective assessment. There were no professionals that really walked those. They walked with the grounds people, the facilities people, but I think a lot of that judgment call was based on maybe the floor plan of Burr. There was some reference made to it might be easier to build onto in the future than HES, because HES property is sort of assessed at 3 different values. The back value property, the Swan Hill, there's sort of an in-between flat area, and then there's the upper area by the road, which is a little bit, I won't say maxed out because I'm a landscape architect, but some people perceive it to be more difficult, more expensive to build on to HES. So that's also concerning. If we're talking about closing a school and we're choosing the school that's easier to build onto, what's the end goal?
Why are we getting rid of the school? Why are we planning on growing?
Go ahead.
I just have a point of clarification. People talk about, the little bit that it'll save in taxes or wanting to save taxes as the reason. But it's my understanding, and from the presentations that I attended, there is no tax savings. The money has all been built into the budget that they intend to use
It will be
for next year.
reallocated.
So there will be no $1 million savings. It's $1 million savings for them, not for the towns.
So
Thank you for bringing that up.
To reiterate that, so what the BOE is saying that this closing a school, the restructuring, or to keep HES out of this, but the restructuring is supposed to bring up $1 million in savings in their budget. And they very well could do that, but what's going to happen is all that money is going to be reallocated to new projects that they want to have done, or projects that have been put aside, and new programming that they feel that they want to bring into the district. So to really understand it, the taxpayers will not see any benefits, as in a reduction of taxes. Now, one of the things that they are saying, and I will play devil's advocate of myself, because they're able to take that money and reallocate it, it's not additional monies that they will need to ask from the town to be able to do those same things, which is one of the reasons why we are taking a really in-depth look at their budget to find out, can we do this in a different way versus restructuring? And then also really quick to say to yours, we are trying to look at this as also, we're not doing it an HES versus Burr. It's something we're really trying to keep away from, because this is about the whole community, and all of our residents and all of the generations. So this is kind of our first step, and this is really about the town center, this talk that we're giving in this presentation. Our next step is many of us do not agree with the restructuring at all. So the next step, part 2, is to discuss the possibility of just
keeping it as is. Let's do things different. Let's look at alternative ways to keep our district, our budget, and our towns.
And maintaining those resources, maintaining those buildings that we have, the resources that we have, so that we aren't in a position where we're hustling to build new, because building new is supposed to be so great. It's not necessarily better. Construction from the, the vintage that these buildings were built. I mean, I'm not an architect, but it's pretty sound. Yep.
My question is, they're gonna close this school over here. Oh, I'm David Olson, life resident of Haddam Neck. They're gonna close Haddam Elementary School and move everybody to Burr School. Is Burr School big enough to put everybody in it, or are they gonna have to put an addition on it to do it?
Not right away. So,
Right now, you can go onto the BOE website and you can see some of their plans for being able to bring in. So what's going to happen is going to be, if you don't know already, it'll be K through 3 in Burr, and then they're moving a 4th over to the middle school, to an intermediate school, which will be 4th and 5th, which will have its own administration, and then have the middle school in the same school with its own administration. So that's kind of the goal. So at the moment, the projections that they're giving us and the information that we're receiving shows that it is. However, without a professional study done and knowing that there's going to be an increase in student population.
If they build more, they're building more houses in town constantly. Every house is 2 more kids on average.
Exactly. And that's
This year,
something
Haddam
that
Neck
we
had 6 to 8 kids.
And these are the things that we are constantly bringing up to the Board of Ed.
Actually, in the last issue of Haddam News, it did address that specifically.
Yep.
It said, Burr expected population K through 3 next year would be at 64% of total capacity.
Right.
Yep, they're moving
And
pre-K.
then 4 through, what's the upper?
it's 4 and 5.
They would be at 93%.
Right. And then you have your middle school too, that's going to be, I
And
think,
that's with
is at
closing
80%.
at an elementary. Now, I don't know the inverse of that. If Burr is closed, would those 300 K through 3 students be able to fit into Haddam Elementary?
Well, it used to fit K through 6, so.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah, no, and from looking at everything and all of the classroom information that they've given us, it would be the same type of scenario. It would for a very short period of time. And then they would have to find alternative plans to put students. One I've already heard, even though they have not even discussed that with us, is that they may go back and utilize central office or the old middle school and use that. But then to us, that's, okay, where's the transportation, more added costs and whatnot. So these are all questions that we're constantly asking. We're getting this information trickling very slowly, and sometimes having to push the Board of Ed to say, hey, you said this information was supposed to be out here and here and here, where is it? Magically, it finally appears. So we are trying to continuously get that information so that we are also understanding where they're coming from.
And it is important, I think I just wanted to point out, and this relates to some of Heather's comments earlier, but there is other shuffling going on. So there's the special ed program that has been moved to KES, because KES is actually the biggest building, but KES was never considered to close because the Board of Ed felt that they should have an elementary school in each town. So KES was never even on the scenarios. They had a few scenarios that they discussed. But they have been already in preparation of this before even, actually, the special ed program moved before the board voted to KES, and now they're moving pre-K to KES to make room at Burr for the primary school. I think it's interesting to note, and when I talk about alternate options or different ideas or more creative thinking, I think it is important to note that while the 4 and 5, which will make up the new intermediate school in that building, in the middle school building, while it might be socially valuable for those students to be together because they're not quite old enough and they're not quite, still in elementary school, it's interesting that they're going to still have their own administration So we're still gonna have the same number of principals. We're obviously not gonna have the same number of staff, but it's also interesting how that all works out once this shuffling around is done. And class sizes, which doesn't relate directly to our presentation tonight, but class sizes are gonna have to go up. And they're not going to exceed the maximum that's
When we had to
been
build the middle
accepted
school.
for the last 10 years. But it's, those numbers are different than what we've been experiencing. And so what Heather was talking about with special services, whether they're psychological services, behavioral services, it is important to note that the way that kids are being educated, and this goes into a whole nother tangent, but the way that kids are educated nowadays, you're not coming to school necessarily all set and ready to learn. Some kids are hungry, some kids are emotionally struggling, others are, we're trying to mainstream everybody, so there's a lot of challenge there. There's a lot of pressure on our teachers to figure out how to navigate that, how to continue to educate when they're, in essence, sometimes teaching 4 different groups in one class. So the small class size has a value, which comes back to us because then we're bringing people in because they move to the town for the good education. If we start messing with that, if we make our teachers upset, or more upset than they already are, maybe, then we're starting to lose our asset.
Right, and we're no longer attractive to those wonderful, amazing teachers that originally came to our school district because it was known to be an amazing school district.
Yeah.
It's just so many, I mean, we
That's a
welcome,
tangent, sorry,
we
but-
welcome you to, please reach out to us. There's many, many layers. This is only 5 of everything that we've worked on from class sizes, the restructuring, the school itself, transportation, the employment, like Liz brought up Pratt and Whitney is bringing in employment, and they've actually been discussing with us. Yola's been working with them on putting in a statement for them to also discuss with BOE. We've done a lot of work, so we very much would love, everything you guys bring to us just makes us go out, if we don't know, we find out, and we find people who do find out. So we're hoping that part of this is actually helping with the collaboration of the town leaders, the town residents, lighting a fire under our, what's.
So Sean and Katie, what I'm going to ask you is for your presentation, just so it'll be part of the minutes, if you can send that.
Yes, I have copies for you guys too.
She can link it to the minutes from tonight, and then it'll be on the town website for people to see, and then obviously this was taped, so it'll be on the local cable access. Any other questions for these 2 ladies? Yes.
Just a comment, Sean and Katie and Jen, I hope we see your names on the ballot in November, because I think red means a lot of help.
And I just have to thank you guys for all your hard work. It's so hard to get people to do anything at all, but when you put your mind and your heart behind something, you guys have done amazing work, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Thank you for all your hard work, I really appreciate it.
And you did reference the POCD quite a bit, so there, just for the record, the POCD is normally a document that the state requires the town to do every 10 years. And that POCD is traditionally sat on a shelf. So this Planning and Zoning Commission has taken action to put numbers together that actually sat on the POCD, not only P&Z members, but people from the community, to continue to make sure that that document is implemented for our community. And we actually won a planning award
It's an
on our
excellent resource.
POCD,
It's an
which is
excellent resource.
also on the town website. So the next steps for that meeting are Wednesday, the 23rd, at the firehouse at 6:30. For those of you that would like to see some next action steps for the POCD. So.
Yeah, I'm dreaming about that document after this week.
So it's got a lot of really good information in it, and again, without all the volunteers and being in a small community and members and residents getting behind things, there's only so many resources that we have being small, And again, if it wasn't for the volunteers and people in the community, we probably wouldn't get anything done. So thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you too.
Yes, Brenda?
Brenda Buzzy, again, Board of Education liaison. I just want to say there is a way to rescind the closing of Haddam Elementary and restructuring, and that is by having the town leaderships support the idea that that the town will take care of, not financially the school, but that you support that decision. Because in the beginning, there was no support from you guys, because it was like, you're the committee, you decide. But all we need is 4 more votes, because there's 11 of us on the committee, and so far there's 2 that are against closing Haddam Elementary. The other members have spoken to me at different times that said if this group supports this group, they'll listen.
And that's what they said to us.
That's exactly what they said to us, hence one of the reasons we really.
That's why we're here.
I think Howard's last thing was, what did he say? That we've heard the vision from the group, we just have never heard the vision from the town.
Yeah,
And
see, and
kind
this
of
is something that I was disappointed in. Their first presentation with that first meeting, where they said town leadership is for closing the school, I was never asked. I was never brought into those conversations, and I talked to Joanne Nesty about that. She corrected it for the second presentation. I really would have liked the Board of Ed to sit down with the Board of Selectmen, Planning, Zoning, EDC, all these committees. They did not do that, and, or Howard Theory, Superintendent.
Really, the Board of Ed.
You could ask us tonight to vote on a resolution to send a letter to the Board of Education to keep HES open if you would like us to do that.
I would like to do that.
So there's one of the points of that though, when the Board of Education did reach out to me and to the town planner, the question was, do we want to purchase a school? And that's a $17
That's a
million.
different
That's a whole different.
That is the question that came upon the board. Again, the facts remain, and right now, and again, I'm very sympathetic to this. I'm not saying that I'm not concerned, and I'm not concerned about the economics. But there's a lot of committees, and there's a lot of people in this community that we all represent. And 2 years ago, the state of Connecticut was looking to cut funding for ECS, which we don't get our fair share of, and special ed, and for teacher pension. And just with that, without closing HES, we were looking at a 3 to 4% mill increase. So the Board of Education has sent a message to the town leadership that don't ask them to look for any other cost savings to help in that. So to your point, to look at what they are spending in transportation, to look at that. You have to remember that this board puts a budget together, and then we have an oversight from the finance committee. There's checks and balances. That does not exist in a regional school district. It's very unlike how most towns normally operate. So until that checks and balances is there for that school budget, to the point of where's the money coming from, or not replacing social workers. You need social workers in your elementary school, never mind in your middle school. There's a lot of issues that are there. So until there's a mechanism to force some kinds of checks and balances, I'm not really sure how that's going to look.
Well, I know one of the things is having you guys' backing on us every time that, and I did send a letter to you, Liz, about how I have asked for these numbers, and that I am,
right.
You guys are hearing all this, being stonewalled, finding reasons not to give me these information. Looking, any of us can access the 2017 audit. Such top line information, you look at it and you just can't get anything. I work for King Arthur Flour, and being an owner of the company, we are constantly being given the earnings and tax,
Right.
the EBITDA.
Yeah, but it's a lot of things are in lines and different things.
Exactly, and we're showing line by line exactly what's happening. It's not a difficult thing to put together. I talked to multiple people on nonprofits about how difficult is this. So I'm doing my due diligence of, are they telling the truth? In addition to that, we've also done some research, and we're in conversations with Christine. On
the state level.
Yeah, on the state level, one of the things that has been brought to our attention is when the towns are showing, and this is just something that I want to bring to you guys, are showing an interest in the development of the education within their towns. They're more likely to take a look at what other additional help that can give to those towns. just some stuff that I've researched in the last couple of days.
I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. The cities are getting all the money and it's all politics.
Nope.
And it's all vote driven. And again, we're part of Cost Council of Small Towns. I sit on that board and I can tell you, that's unfortunately a very new representative coming in. And I wish her well with that, but that is not what's going on up in Hartford. The towns are running very fairly. The towns are running we have a AAA credit rating. We watch our budget. I have $50,000 to operate all of the town buildings in this town. And we're still able to find our way to get through. So again, until the real numbers are there and it's transparent, I really have difficulty because I'll be honest with you. What happens is when they're talking about having this cost savings to not ask for much because they have contracts with the teachers for their salaries. They have contracts for insurance, they have contracts for different things. When it comes down to, it's the town that has to raise the mill rate. We vote, we go with Killingworth. We're going to lose if we go to referendum. Killingworth is very much in favor of closing the school. And it is gonna be Haddam that suffers for the tax consequences.
And it's gonna be Haddam that suffers if it closes.
Right. And also
So-
to let you know,
so-
I have also spoken to many borough parents, and they're not upset about closing HES, but they're very upset about the whole restructuring.
Some of them are upset about closing HES because it's gonna change their
It's
class
gonna change
size.
their town and their class size. Class size is a big deal. But one of the things is that I did do this survey that Katie brought up, and I'll email you guys the results for those surveys. Many of the questions that I asked did kind of focus on the town. I tried to do both HES and the town itself. A majority of the 262 respondents were willing to go ahead and pay that additional tax.
And I understand that, but there's others that are struggling and there's others that can't. So again, to me, it comes down to the economics, and I don't feel that I don't think we were elected to favor one group over another. I think we were elected for the well-being of the town.
Well,
And we don't know what the RFP is gonna look like, which is gonna be opened in the next 2 weeks. To me, until I see that, whether we get bids or we don't get bids or what the development that's gonna be. And again, putting all of these boards and committees together, which is the voice of the community, it's not just the three of us, is really important. So that's why I wanted the opportunity to let you come tonight to see the information that you have and to see what you put together. And I think you did a great thing. You did a great job. And again, the passion that's come from this and the interest and everything, I don't look at this as a political stance, I look at this as a town stance. But there's a lot more work to be done, I think, with folks, and that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity to start to do this tonight and start to have other conversations with what some of the committees want to do. But you have a P&Z committee, you have an EDC committee, there's a lot of other committees that I would very much like to hear what they have to say.
Absolutely.
So the meeting on the 24th, I think, will be helpful, and then those bids get open the week after. So
I was just gonna also, is there any way that you can, and it doesn't have to be at their meeting, but invite the PO,
the Board of Ed?
Thank you,
Of
Board of
course.
Ed, too many acronyms going
Yeah,
on.
no, and to invite the Board of Ed to
to
come
that
to the
meeting,
meeting,
yeah.
definitely. But the members that I've spoken to from the Board of Ed, I've talked to, are not looking to change their mind. They are not looking to change their mind. And I was not at the meeting, and I also asked for the tape. I need to look at the tape of the meeting, to be honest, because I really think that if this committee of the Board of Education made a decision, and now to throw it back on the town that has no control over what happens to the building, we don't own the building, RSD 17 owns the building, at the 11th hour is a really crappy thing to do.
Well, and my concern about that, if I could just respond, is that I know a lot of us that when this came out in October of 2017, when they introduced 4 scenarios, they had 5, but they immediately got rid of 1. When that process began, that was the time for people to start to come together. And that was the time that people did start to come together. Unfortunately, we weren't able to garner the kind of support immediately. And I think because of the way that things are set up and because it is a district, there's this feeling that they are going to do whatever they're going to do, and they're just going to do it, and it's a done deal, and we can't do anything about it. It's taken this long to get to this point where following the trail of questions, we should have come up with a lot of answers by now, and we don't have those answers. We just have some anecdotal information, which some of what we've provided is, opinion-based, but a lot of what we shared with you tonight is research-based. It's planning-based. It's unfortunate that our town planner doesn't start until tomorrow, but hopefully he'll be in on that meeting on the 24th. But it does come full circle, and it is important, if this is where we are now, it is important to speak that much louder. And it shouldn't all be on the Board of Selectmen, and it shouldn't all be on the Board of Ed. It should be all of these groups working together to come up with the right solution. Whether it's legally substantiated or not, that's what should have happened in the first place. The fact that it didn't happen is unfortunate, but it's not a done deal. It's not a done deal. And even if there are people on that Board of Ed that don't want to change their mind, that think, honestly, and I do think a lot of them just think that they're doing the right thing. And I also think now that we are at this point in the process, they're not really sure what to do, because what do you do now? Like, you
Right.
voted for this a year ago.
Even Katie, when I asked though for the data, and we asked for the report, Killimore said, let Haddam pay for it. Just stop.
Let Haddam pay for what?
Let Haddam pay for the report on the population.
See, that's ridiculous.
And to me, we're a regional school district.
Mhm.
So again, I think.
Well, I mean, that kind of
party-
stuff needs to stop. I
Right.
mean, that's been going on
and
for
it- and it
years
can't,
when they
but
say
that
let
party
Haddam.
needs to come from that Board of Education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's really
And I
where.
do feel that, I personally feel as many meetings that I've been to and as many times as, and we've got, really good support on specific board members such as Brenda, though they are still they still have their ideas of keeping their vote, that things are changing in the back of their head. And that's not just Haddam members either.
Right. But also, when I've asked, I got all the articles from Haddam X, all the letters and all of that. So where does that group stand? I mean, that's really what I want to say, is that I am very sympathetic, you all know that. But where do we draw the line and where do we stand? And without the actual data, and I'll be honest, I'm very concerned about what's gonna happen legislatively this year. I mean, they passed a budget in October of 2017 that got us through 2018. And in the middle of it, they pulled money that was supposed to come and fix our roads, and all these things are real problems, these are town problems that we need to face. And I'm not saying the education isn't important, it's right up there. But when they start drying things up, and we are legally obligated, whatever number is passed at that budget in May for the regional school district, whether we have the dollars or not, we have to provide those payments to the school district on a regular basis, or we're liable for that. That's a legal problem.
And they're not mutually exclusive though, so here's the issue. There's the whatever the state wants to give us is whatever the state wants to give us. What is the savings of closing the school? It's almost nothing.
Right.
And that's just the number that they say that they have no math
We
to
don't
back
even know
that
what
up.
that real number is.
Right, exactly. So even if you take, say $1 million.
Which we should know that by now.
Right.
We should know
But
that.
they obviously don't, and we obviously don't. $1 million split between the two towns, that's only $500,000 for Haddam. That's nothing. What's that?
600, 400.
Yeah, well, I rounded, 500. So it's still about $500,000.
75%.
Yeah, it's 100, yeah.
It's not a lot of money, and I think that's what a lot of townspeople are grabbing onto, is that it's cost savings. I asked for, years ago, a solid professional study on the school population. That did not happen. Obviously, you already know all that. But we can't, it's not mutually exclusive to say, well, we're not gonna get this money, we have to consider closing a school. If there's no savings in closing a school, it doesn't matter. Our tax is gonna go up anyway, and we just have to keep pounding on our legislators.
Well, and to try to bring this full circle, for one of the reasons that the additional work that we've done outside of just saving the school and the restructuring is, we want to, I feel, at least one of my goals in doing and adding and putting all this work in is trying to make our town of Haddam and the Higginham Village attractive to new residents, to these new generations that are coming in addition to keeping it lively, viable, and vibrant for all of our generations. But how do we compete as an urban community with the city new structures of these? And so we need to find ways that we can actually stay attractive, keep going and moving, bring in these taxpayers. Bring in people to help us split this
Right.
and keeping HES
Which goes back to
open.
the infrastructure, because
Exactly.
without the infrastructure in place, you don't have those
It's-
outside
it's just-
taxpayers other than the residents doing that. I mean.
It's all related. It's
Correct.
all related. And the
Correct.
fact that decisions are being made in a vacuum is irresponsible. So if there are no checks and balances, then we need to be the checks and we need to be the balances. And we need to demand that information, and we need to do whatever we need to do to halt the process, at least long enough to get some answers.
And I'm happy to request the information, because we need facts. We need facts.
We need
to make
facts.
decisions.
We
And
need,
even a recommendation to postpone, to give us that time to research the data once they give it to us. I mean, or you.
well, it's gonna take them time, because they don't have it. They don't have the information. It is all, is not all, but a lot of it is short-term sort of projections or unqualified projections or budgets that don't have proper line items or allocations. And it's important to have these data, period. We've been saying this for a year. And the response that I got to that was, well, I guess the board was comfortable with the information that they were given. Well, that's just not good enough.
Pam wants to talk.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we need your support to ask the Board of Education to hit the pause button. Just hit the pause button, stop the actions that are being done right now, step back, take a deep breath, and then we can all work together doing professional assessments, professional demographic studies, have a professional come in and advise us. I think by not, you're asking all of us to do all of that, but if we could just have your support, that letter of resolution supporting the decision that we request the Board of Education, stop what you're doing right now. Let's not rush headlong into it, and let's just take a step back. And then you'll have the support of the community to really look at this issue. It may end up that HES needs to close, but without hard data, without professional studies being done, nobody is buying into it. And that's just causing dissension and disapproval.
And in the long run.
I can't imagine that the educational budgets are going to pass right away.
I second that.
Well,
I will make a motion that the Board of Selectmen sign a resolution to ask the Board of Education to re-vote on the closure of HES.
I would support asking them to pause and look at, we need the facts. That's what we
Yep.
need to do.
Pause.
But I have to say this, so just for full disclosure, so I'm gonna be, all the emails that come, all the share, the community needs to decide what they want to do. That's what has to happen. Not just the three of us need to decide what we wanna do. And there are many people here tonight that are in favor of keeping the school open, and I understand that. But there also are people who are in favor of closing.
Yes.
But so to your point, to have the facts, to
To
have the
have
information, to
good,
have the data,
solid facts.
to have everything together, so that there's no, because there's a lot of twisting and turning.
Yep.
There's this, and then
Yep.
there's that, and then
Yep.
there's this, and then there's that. Those things, because you can't make a decision based on emotion. You
Yep.
have to make a decision.
Nor can you make decisions based on data that's been sort of massaged and
Correct.
done in a bubble, in a vacuum.
So if that is the case, and it is to ask them to pause and to look at the
Yep.
data, and to do that, I'm happy to do that.
Take some time. Let's
But
really look
again,
at it.
it has to be a very good fact find, because
Yeah.
we can't make decisions
Well,
based on.
Well, it
They'll
sounds like
need to
people are
hire
making- the
professional people.
against it are saying they want it because of the savings, and
They're not gonna pay it.
they're not any
Let me
savings.
just say this to you, Heather, and this is the truth. there are many people, and again, this is what, there's a lot, we're not the only town where school is closing. This is a state of Connecticut problem. This is a Haddam problem because we're here, and is our economic problem, but is a state of Connecticut problem. And if you think that things were bad with what was coming, it's only gonna get worse. So until the legislature gets their act together and figures out how this is gonna be, without hurting the small communities, we can't survive. You have towns that are going bankrupt, okay, because they can't afford to pay their education budget, that are smaller than us. So, there's been comments about being regional, being together, being this, being that. And when you try to find cost savings and you try to work together, there's all these different things. There's this union here, and you can't work with this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. There's so much red tape involved, and there's so much time involved, that it's absolutely ridiculous. So I agree, but if we go ahead and do this, we need those facts and that data to come forward. And they may stay there, not gonna change their vote, and they may do what they need to do, but if you feel that that's compelling enough to be able to do that, I'm okay with that.
We have one question in the back.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
That's
I wasn't
okay.
ignoring
Everyone
you.
was looking this way, no problem. Basically, at this point, I just want to second most of everything that was said, especially this woman in the red. But my name is Marie Lippincott. I am a new resident to Haddam. My husband and I bought property here about 1.5 years ago with our little 3-year-old boy. And that school, Haddam Elementary School, was probably one of the main reasons why we moved here. That took our attention, like you said, as soon as we drove through town. Then to find out about how good the school system was and all of those things, that's why we moved here. I can tell you for sure that I would not have moved here had that school been vacant. That would have been a red flag to me, and I would have said, you know what, I'm going to choose another town. Because I do know of other towns in the state of Connecticut would close schools, and it's no good for them. None of them. So
Why are we
to
making
echo
this
everyone
mistake?
else, and then to simply say, also thank you to all these women and all men and all you're doing, because I wouldn't even know that, I thought it was a done deal. I went to get my eyes checked. My eye doctor told me, I'm from Haddam too. And I said, oh, it's great. I love the town.
They have not
I
told
love
me.
the schools.
Right, and again, I heard, and that was communicated to me, but they have not said that to me. I do not have a formal letter from the Board of Education, other than the comments that I was told by this committee.
It says what, I'm sorry?
That it was not a done deal, and to bring the town leadership together, other than, and I believe you, I don't.
No, you have a Board of Ed member here that has it on the agenda next week.
Well, what I think is important to say is
She's
that
on the
the
agenda next week, yes.
townspeople believe it's a done deal, or had believed it was a done deal.
Correct.
Okay, that's the important part, because had I known, I would have done anything I could, which is what I said to my eye doctor when I left. I thanked her and said, what can I do? And she said, show up. Well, I've been at the last 5 meetings, and I haven't spoken to the Board of Ed. And I'll tell you what, it's shocking to me to watch these people, these citizens, these people that are very concerned, standing, talking, and it's almost as if they don't hear nothing. I mean, it is wild, it's appalling. And then when it's over, they go, okay, and we're gonna go on to light bulbs, anybody wanna talk about light? I mean, it's unbelievable. I was there with the news stations, I was there without the news stations, I was there, I'm here tonight. My little boy has a fever at home with my husband, otherwise he'd be here too. Please help us, just represent us.
There's a motion on the
Get the
floor.
facts.
I will be happy to draft
I
that
know.
first draft based on what we've all said, what we've heard tonight, asking for data. The legal option that we have in front of us is the Board of Ed has to re-vote to,
I do have it as a line item. I was able to get it on the 22nd for Tuesday.
as in tomorrow, as in
Next week.
Yeah, next
tomorrow?
22nd.
No,
Next
no,
week,
no, no,
22nd.
Oh,
Okay. Decide should.
So it is a line item to do exactly what you're saying.
So I have a quick question about that. Brenda, you need 4 members out of the 11, or 6 out of the 11,
Yeah.
to have it pass, whether it gets rescinded or hold everything.
Whatever she motions.
Who makes that motion? Does it come from the chair, or can it come?
Anybody can make a motion.
Anybody?
No, it has to be on the agenda to make the motion.
Well, that's, yeah, it has to be on the
Technically,
agenda.
But yeah, a board member has
It
to do
doesn't
it.
have to be. You can make a motion, as long as it's not a special meeting, anybody can make a
You
motion.
can make a motion to add an item to the agenda, and then the board has to vote.
They won't allow
to
that.
add it to the agenda.
They don't allow that.
Okay, the quick backstory on that, the reason I asked is because those that weren't there, I spoke down at Hillmore one of the nights. And I asked the chair if she would make a motion to rescind the closing of the school. She started talking. I said, listen, it's a yes or no question. And Joanne's response was no. So that's why I asked, can it come from any board member, and does it has to be on the agenda?
The board has to agree to vote, to put it on the agenda
Right.
and then to vote on that.
Those are two separate motions that need to be.
But anybody can make those motions.
Not at a special meeting when it is a traditional meeting.
Just a regular Board of Ed meetings? No problem.
All right, any other comments?
One
Yes.
comment I would like to make is, you know, like you were saying about the budget, how can they say how much we're gonna save or how much it's gonna cost? It'd be like when I moved to town here. You know, if you don't know how much it's gonna cost you to survive, you're not gonna move to town here. You do your homework. And part of mine was the education, what my kids were gonna get versus what I was paying for in a private sector, because I didn't want my kids to go into those public schools. So, you know, my wife and I said, we can spend this much more a year to move to Haddam because we won't have to spend it on special schooling. That, to me, is, you know, doing my homework. And that's why I'm still here till this day. But how can they make such an important decision when they don't even have the figures, the facts? You know, how much are you gonna save? Another thing, that was given to the town, that land, on the grounds that we build a school
And
on.
the deed was changed, and the
Yeah.
regional school district.
Yeah.
Quickly. So that deed is null and void, that no longer.
But the question I have is, that was deeded to the town,
Correct.
all right?
And then the town
Now,
deeded it to the regional school district.
okay, did they pay us for that school?
That was
No,
part of the deal
Part of
when
the
we
deal
regionalized.
when we regionalized.
So all they do is pay the bills for it.
Right.
Yes.
So
We pay the
when, if they want to
Yeah, we
close
do.
it,
We pay the bills.
we have to buy the school from the regional or the state when we gave it to them in the first place?
No, it was part of the package deal. So there was already the high school, so Haddam had more schools than Killingworth. So it was part of the budget at that time. So it's owned by the regional district right now. If the
Right.
town wanted to take it back, we would have to buy it from the regional school district.
At fair market value.
Or, no, I did hear from the chair that the Board of Ed would consider working with us.
But they have yet to give us a value, they have yet to tell me how much
They
it
have
costs to
not done a
run, there's
commercial
so much information we don't know.
They don't even
Right.
have an
Well,
assessment.
that's-
They don't have an,
that's
they don't
the
have an
whole
assessment.
point.
They took
There's
that,
No point.
they took that to the RFP wide open. Come tell me what you want. Like, that RFP, if any of you guys have read it, is
And the RFP's
totally
due
open-ended.
February 6th.
But going on what she said about the meeting, Mr. Tierney was, I mean, he just sat there like you were talking to
Theory.
the wall. He was more concerned about the color on his diagram because they were shades of purple or pink. And, you know, that was the big talk, that, oh, well, I wanted to change the color. He even left the meeting. He left the meeting to change the color on his diagram of the school. I mean, it's just, they just don't seem to care. These two do. I can see it just by their input, you know. I have, you know, respect for them on the committee, but the others, you know, it's just,
And kudos to them for standing up for themselves.
absolutely, absolutely.
Brenda?
Brenda.
We have one person in the back, sorry.
Right here?
I called on Joe, so just let me, go ahead.
Shouldn't Killingworth be concerned as well?
No,
I mean, this is gonna increase class sizes for the whole district. They're part of RSD 17, so it's gonna affect their home values, the residents there. Why wouldn't they be
The
concerned?
Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance communicated that they have no interest in this.
And I don't think parents, like people said, the people whose children are impacted didn't have the information, don't know the information,
So,
they don't know,
I asked
you know?
Kathy, if she got any emails from any residents concerned about the school closing, and she told me she didn't receive one.
But the information didn't get to the
Because
kids.
the problem is
Because
though,
they don't have the information.
They don't know.
Right.
It's gonna affect
So-
sizes and in turn
Right.
affect home values.
But again, they're able to keep their mill rate lower because of their 60/40 or 58.
And they're able to keep their
Yeah.
school
And
if they
Chris
chose
just
to.
said- Chris just-
Yes.
that was my question.
But if you remember at the meeting, they brought that up, and again, that was not fair, because that one member I called out on, this is not a Haddam versus Killingworth issue, this is a regional school district issue.
And you didn't see me.
So again, we gotta kind of get we need the facts, back to Pam's point, we need to be able to do that. So I will put a letter together,
Well, there's a motion on the floor.
well, the letter's gonna come from my office. So,
There's a motion on the floor.
fine, all in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Okay, so,
I'd rather
I'm
see-
sorry to get
Nay.
that.
I'd rather see it come from our selectmen.
It needs
Same
to
letter
come-
that
It would come from all of us.
It's
We
going
would
to
work
come-
on the letter together.
Yes.
I'm in charge of the day-to-day, it's gonna come from my office.
Okay.
And we can, Brenda, but it's my responsibility to do it, and that's what I'm going to do.
Do you, were you
So
asked for the
I'm
first
going
selectmen's
to-
opinion or the board of selectmen's opinion?
Can we, in the letter that comes from your office, can we have it where the entire,
All three of them.
Only if we vote.
EOS?
Yes, it will, but it needs to come, she's the
Why
secretary to
is
put
it
the
not
letter together,
for-
because she wants to draft it, it's going to come from my office.
You can draft it.
I'm
and
not
I would
gonna
agree.
argue the point, it is in the responsibilities of
You
the
can't
first
say that the board of
selectmen's office.
selectmen sent a letter.
I can't, Melissa,
No,
but
you
it will
can't.
come.
You didn't vote on that motion.
I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you about that.
Yeah, go ahead. Over and over and over again, we don't have the facts, we don't have the facts. The facts that are out there are shaky at best. They don't, probably not even real. We don't have the facts, we don't have the facts. Liz, I heard you say repetitively, we don't have the facts. We need the facts.
Right.
So the motion that we are trying to get moving here is that press pause
That's
so we
exactly,
can get the facts.
that's exactly what the letter's gonna say, it's just a procedural thing of where it comes.
I know that's the breakdown though.
Please make it-
Because we're all stuck in my seat.
Can I get the words out? That's what I'm about to do.
Thank you.
We have a comment over here.
No, it's okay, it's all right, I'll wait my turn. My name is Elizabeth Abatello. I've been a Haven resident since I was 5 years old, when my father and my family and I moved here. I would be interested for you to include on that, if they have a lower mill rate, if Killingworth has a lower mill rate than Haddam, Hagenham, and Haddam Neck, then how is that fair if we're all paying in? Are we all paying the same dollars to the school
It
district?
has to do with the ECS formula and the funds that come from the state of Connecticut. What they receive in aid is different per capita and how they're looked at versus Haddam, so that's
Okay.
one factor.
Okay,
The other factor is the population
right.
of what we have.
I know they're like double our size,
For
right?
enrollment.
No,
So there's
smaller.
another, they're smaller, and
Okay.
so they don't have to contribute in as much to pay for the budget.
Well, then you
If
can
we
tell
do.
them that they don't have to worry about it, because Haddam residents are already paying for it.
Well, now you got, mill rate is this tricky thing though, because you can say that Killingworth has a lower mill rate, that doesn't mean they actually pay less taxes. Because mill rate is based on the value of your home. Killingworth actually has higher home values
Okay.
than Haddam does. So when you look at their mill rate lower and ours is a little higher, most people in Killingworth actually pay more in taxes than Haddam residents. So it gets a little tricky, depends on your house and values.
But I would just be interested into how much, to the school budget. 64.
They pay about
We-
40% because they have fewer
So,
children.
like 78 cents of every tax dollar that we pay as Haddam residents, it's right on your tax bill, goes to Regional School District 17.
Right,
So
but I'm interested into what Killingworth is.
I'd have to look at what their
Yeah.
tax bills say, but there's a number of things to take into consideration why it's different. And yes, it has to do with the value of what the mill rate is, but again, the funds that they receive from the state, they get a percentage more based on their capita than we do. So they kind of have a step up from us, and the fact that their population of children is lower. So there's an imbalance there. All right? And they also don't offer, some of the services we offer, to be honest. They don't have a senior center. There's many things that Killingworth does not offer. They have a full-time health district. There's many things that Killingworth does not have that Haddam has. So, you know, we run differently. We run differently.
Thank you.
So,
you're gonna make a motion then, Liz?
yes. Anybody else?
Really quick,
Yes.
at the joint meeting, Liz, Melissa, and Larry, I was under the impression that all three of you said that you were not in support of closing Haddam Elementary School. Correct. At that meeting, you said that, correct?
I did not say that. I said I was concerned about the economics. I said that I understood from the financial perspective, if we really do, based on the information that they said, that our school in